You've got your deer, and if you're going to put high quality venison on the table, that begins at this point, assuming of course you've made a quick and clean and humane kill to begin with. So we'd like to show you how to process this deer to produce high quality eating that you and your family will truly enjoy. When you come to the deer and the deer is down, the first thing you want to do of course is to make sure that the animal is dead, and the best way to do that is to touch the eye and see if there's any reaction. If there's no reaction when you put your finger on the eyeball, the deer doesn't blink, then you can assume the deer is dead. If the deer isn't dead, you probably want to shoot it again to kill the deer quickly and to begin bleeding the deer so that you lose as much blood as possible from the meat. The heart is right here behind the elbow of the deer, and a shot at that point will quickly dispatch the deer. Then you're ready to begin the process of butchering the deer. But first thing, a little bit of gun safety. Let's unload the firearm so that our firearm is safe, and we can begin the process of butchering the deer. Now, a lot of hunters will want to slit the deer's throat to make sure it's bled, but that's not advisable. If the deer's dead, there's no point in cutting the throat because it won't bleed, and if the deer is alive, sticking a live deer with a knife can be very hazardous. So it's best to shoot it from a distance, and then the deer is safe to begin butchering. Of course, according to the law, the first thing you need to do is tag the deer so that the deer is properly tagged, and I'll punch the date on the time that I killed it and then attach the tag to the ear so that the deer is now legally in my possession. There are several things you want to have in your backpack, in your fanny pack, to make the process of field dressing the deer a lot easier. And one of the things that I find very important is a rope, because this helps make it convenient for you to remove the innards. And it's important that the innards be removed as soon as possible so the meat begins to cool, because we're going to talk frequently about getting the venison, the meat of the deer, cool, clean, and dry as quickly as possible. So I'm going to tie up a hind leg and get it up in the air so that I have free and easy access to the belly of the deer to make the process of butchering it, or make the process of field dressing it, a lot easier. To begin the process of field dressing, the first thing you want to do is remove the insides, the bowels, the gastrointestinal tract from one end to the other intact, so that you don't have any contamination from bowel, from stomach contents, from any of the innards. Now, if this were a buck, we would start by removing the genitals and cutting backwards towards the anus so that the male genitals were free from the deer. But since this is a doe, we can start immediately around the anal vent. And what I'm going to do is take this knife with a long, narrow blade and cut completely around the anus and the female reproductive tract, keeping the blade against the hip bone so that I don't puncture the rectum or any of the bowels. And this will free the end of the bow from this end of the deer, and then I can pull it out through the opening that I'm going to make in the belly. So I'm going to start by very carefully cutting, inserting the knife in against the bone and cutting around, completely around the anal vent and around the reproductive organs. Once the anus and rectum is cut free, then the next job is to open the belly cavity so we can remove the innards. But this needs to be done very carefully so that none of the insides is punctured. Remember, the bowel and the bladder and the stomach contents contain lots of bacteria, and we don't want to contaminate the meat with that bacteria. So I'm going to start cutting open the belly skin, but I'm going to do so very carefully, and I'm going to keep my finger on the point of the knife so that I don't puncture any bowel or stomach contents with the point of that knife. So first thing is cut through the skin, and then this exposes the stomach wall, the belly wall, of the muscles of the abdomen. And this allows you to see a little bit better what it is that you're doing and where you're cutting. So with the belly wall then exposed and easy for you to see, very carefully want to cut through that belly wall. And being very careful as you cut not to puncture the stomach, which is the first large organ that you'll see, or any of the intestines. Now, the next step will be cut up through the rib cage, and that's easy to do. It's not necessary to use an axe. Simply take the blade of your knife and cut between the ribs and the sternum. Now, if this is a large buck, you want to stop at this point, because this is the part that will be mounted if you choose to have it as a mount. And so you would stop at this point and remove the innards. But for this demonstration, we're going to keep right on cutting directly up, and I'm going to cut all the way up the throat so that the body cavity is completely open. Now, if we've done a good job, the body contents will come out very nicely. And if I have cut the rectum free, then it pulls through. And there may be a little bit of connective tissue left. So I want to be careful not to puncture anything. I'm going to cut a little bit of the connective tissue that's holding that, and the rectum and reproductive organs that I have cut through come out completely intact, and so that way I'm removing all of the contents of the animal intact without breaking any of the organs
which would contaminate the meat. Now, the next problem that I come to is this large muscle right here. This is the diaphragm, and the liver is immediately attached to it. So what we want to do is cut that diaphragm to cut free the rest of the internal organs. And one of the first organs that will come out as we cut the diaphragm free is the liver. And since liver at deer camp, fresh deer liver, is exceptionally good, you may want to save this particular organ for fresh liver, particularly at deer camp. Sliced very thin, as we will demonstrate later, and fried with a little bit of butter or margarine is exceptionally good. So this is the liver. I've removed it intact, and since we're going to butcher this liver to show how to properly prepare it, and I don't want to get it dirty or contaminated, I have in my backpack some plastic bags, and I'm going to put this liver in a plastic bag to keep it clean and ready to be processed at a later time. I can continue cutting out the rest of the organs. I'm slicing against the backbone so that the organs come out freely. And the next organ that comes out, besides the lungs, which come next, is the heart. And so I'm going to cut the heart free. And now that I have the heart free, if you want to butcher the heart and use the meat from the heart, you'll have a nice clean piece of meat as well. So I'm going to put that in the same bag with the liver, and those two cuts of meat now are safely stored and ready for processing. The rest is fairly easy. I'm going to cut free the last of the respiratory system, the heart or the lungs, and the diaphragm, and out from the throat will come the windpipe, as you can see, and the food pipe, the esophagus. And I'm going to take them all the way up to the very tip of the throat, and I'm going to cut them free. Now all the internal organs are free from the deer, and the deer is clean on the inside. That's the very beginning of getting high quality venison on the table. At this point too, it's good to have another plastic bag where you have some paper towels, and I would suggest some dark paper towels, and you use these paper towels to wipe out the inside of the deer, again, to get it as clean as you possibly can. Please don't use leaves to wipe out the blood in the body cavity, because remember, leaves have dirt on them, they have bacteria, and that's contaminating the meat with bacteria. Now that you've got the body cavity completely open and cleaned out and done cleanly and neatly, the meat will begin to cool, and you've mopped up any excess blood so that the animal then is as clean as possible and can begin to cool. If you've wiped the body cavity down using some paper towels or rags that you've brought with you, you have a good, clean body cavity, uncontaminated, and the animal's ready to drag out of the woods and then ready for butchering. You'll notice as I did this, I've used brown paper towels or a dark cloth. Some safety features. I don't like the idea of having white waving around in the woods. It's also nice to have the paper towels to clean up a little bit after you're finished. You've noticed I've also left my hunter orange cap on so that I'm visible and identifiable as a hunter as I work around the deer. But the deer now is cleaned out. The body cavity is open. The carcass is beginning to cool, and now I'm ready to drag the deer out of the woods. I'm going to leave the innards here on the ground because foxes and coyotes and up north bear do a pretty good job of cleaning them up very, very quickly. So it's time to pack up and drag the deer out of the woods. And for this size deer, since I don't need a hunting companion, I'm ready to remove the animal, take it back from the woods, take it back to my automobile.